So let's start talking about telling time to the quarter hour. In the past, you have learned to tell time to the hour and to the half hour. When we talk about time to the hour, we know that the minute hand is always on the 12, and the hour hand, the shorter hour hand, is pointing to one of the numbers on the clock. So, for example, 3 o'clock. That's time to the hour. It always starts with the minute hand at the top of the hour, up at 12, and we call that o'clock, 3 o'clock. You have also learned to tell time to the half hour. So when you're talking about a half hour, the minute hand has made it halfway around the whole clock, so it would be pointing at the 6 now, and then the hour hand would be about halfway between the hour of 3 and 4. So it was 3 o'clock, it is now 3:30, and that hour hand has moved slightly off of the 3 because it's halfway towards 4 o'clock now. So why do we call it a quarter hour anyways? Why is it called a quarter of an hour? Well, let's divide the clock into 4 parts, which we normally call 4 parts of something quarters. Because if you think about $1, if you divide that into 4 parts or cut it into 4 parts, you would have 4 quarters. That makes $1. So sometimes when we cut something else up into 4s, we call those quarters as well. This clock is divided or cut into 4 pieces. This section is 1/4 of the clock. We would call that a quarter of the clock. Here's another 1/4. Here's another 1/4, 1 out of 4 pieces, and here's another 1/4. When we're telling time, and the minute hand has now moved, instead of being on the 12 for the o'clock time, if it has moved all the way to the 3, like so, the minute hand has traveled 15 minutes, and sometimes we say that it has moved past 1/4 of the whole clock. Instead of going halfway around, it has only made it 1/4 of the way around, or a quarter of the way around. So that's why we use the word quarter. It's 1/4 of the way around the clock. So let's talk about telling time to the quarter of an hour. Let's say it's 2 o'clock. Okay? We know that the minute hand is on the 12, the hour hand is on the 2. This is 2 o'clock. 15 minutes later, it will be 2:15. The minute hand has moved 15 spaces. If you counted each one of these little tick marks, you would get all the way to 15 when you got on the 3. Or, as you know, you can count each number on the clock counting by 5s. So this is 5 minutes after, 10 minutes after the hour, 15 minutes after the hour. So there's a couple of ways that we can say this time. We can say that it's 2:15. That means it's 15 minutes past the hour of 2. But sometimes we can also say it's a quarter after 2. A quarter after. And again, here's why we call it quarter after. Because this much of the clock has been used up now. That minute hand has traveled from the 12 down to the 3. It has passed over a quarter of the clock. So that's why we call it quarter after. There's another time when we would use the word quarter in talking about the clock as well. And you might see it look like this, with the minute hand over on the 9, and then the hour hand. Let's say we just finished 2:15. Well, it has gotten a little later now, and it's a little bit closer to 3 o'clock. The minute hand is on the 9. About how many minutes after the hour would that be? Well, let's count by fives. 5 minutes, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. It is now 45 minutes past the hour. I can say that and write that as 2:45. Another way that we can say it is that it's a quarter to the next hour, quarter to 3. There's only one more quarter of this clock that the minute hand has to travel until it reaches 3 o'clock. So when it's 2:45, sometimes we say it's quarter to 3, because the minute hand only has to travel one more quarter to get to the next hour. Okay, I'm going to draw some hands on the clock, and I want you to practice saying the time in 2 different ways, and I'll show you one first. Let's start with this one. We can see that the minute hand is up at the 12. That's an o'clock time, right? So let's say now that I change that, you would be able to say that as 4 o'clock. Let's change that now to this time. The minute hand is now 15 minutes after the hour, and we also know that that's called quarter after. So the 2 ways that you would say this are 4:15 and quarter after 4. When you say quarter after, you're always saying quarter after what the hour is, not the minutes. Quarter after what hour? Okay, so I'm going to draw some hands on the clock. You try saying it in 2 ways. The time like this, something 15, or quarter after something. And if it's over here on the 9, you're going to say something 45, for example, 10:45, or quarter to 11. Remember, if you're over here on the 45 side, then you're quarter to the very next hour. Okay, try this one. What time is this? Try to say it in 2 ways. If you said 7:15, you're right. And if you said quarter after 7, you are correct. How about this one? Try to say this time in 2 different ways. This clock shows 1:45. We've passed the hour of 1. It's getting close to the 2, but it's not there yet. So it's still in the hour of 1. So it's 1:45. And how about saying quarter to? What do you say quarter to? Quarter to 2. Because, like I said, it's not 2 o'clock yet, but it's almost 2 o'clock. So here we're saying quarter to 2 means it's going on 2 o'clock. It's pretty soon going to be 2 o'clock. Good job. Try again. Didn't use 2 different colors that time. What time is this on the clock? Try to say it in 2 ways. The time is 11:15. We are 15 minutes past 11 o'clock. How else could you say it? it's also 11:15. Again, the hands are the same color this time, but you should see that one is much longer than the other. Remember that long minute hand. What time is it on the clock now? What time is it now? Can you say it in two ways? The time is 6:45. We can also call that 6:45. What hour is coming next after 6? It's 6:45. I hope you looked closely, because even though this hand looks like it's almost on the 7, it's not there yet. You've got to look real closely. That's why we called it 6:45, because it hasn't become 7 o'clock yet. So to review, anytime the minute hand, that's the long hand on a clock, anytime the minute hand is pointing at the 3, we call that 15 minutes after the hour. So something 15, 10:15, 12:15, 7:15. Or we can also say quarter after 3, 7:15. When the minute hand is pointing to the 9, that's 45 minutes past the hour, 10:45, 12:45. But we could also say 1/4 the next hour. So if it was 10:45, that's 11:45. If it's 12:45, that's 1/4, whatever the next hour coming up is. Keep practicing telling time. Now you know how to tell time to the hour, to the half hour, and even to the quarter hour. Keep practicing, but for right now, it is time to go. See ya.